Good evening, ladies. How's everybody this evening?
Hello.
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 Anthony, Kaylee, how's everybody?
Hi.
Oh, we got to get Sarah. We lost Sarah, but we'll get her back on. Welcome, everybody, to Delegate Lavender-Bowe's virtual town hall meeting. I am Sarah BNWB, and I'm going to be moderating and kind of facilitating tonight's conversation. I'm super, super thrilled to be here among our future leaders, our current leaders, actually, and future leaders, and converse and have a discussion about what's the best of West Virginia, maybe what's not so good about West Virginia, and what can we do to improve and solve some of the problems. And that's really going to be our focus, is problem solving and having conversations about what we can do to improve not just the state, but for our quality of life here in the state. Kaylee, I'm going to start with you, Kaylee. If you want to introduce yourself, then we'll go to Sarah, Lauren, and Bethany, and then we'll have Delegate Bowe introduce herself. So, yeah, Kaylee, take it away.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Alder. I am a junior at Greenbrier East, and I'm so excited to be here.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Allen Strait. I'm also a junior at Greenbrier East. And I'm also really excited to be here. And I think I was having a little bit of Wi-Fi issues. So if I jot out, that's why.
All right, Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren Rogers. I'm a sophomore at Greenbrier East, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity to talk with you guys.
Great. And Bethany.
I'm Bethany McClung, and I'm a senior at Greenbrier East, and I'm also very excited for this opportunity.
Well, great. Well, this is one of those opportunities. Delegate Lavender-Bowe, tell us about you and what we're here for.
I'm Cindy Lavender-Bowe. I'm the delegate representing the 42nd District, and that's comprised of Greenbrier County, parts of Monroe, and Summers counties. And we have been having some virtual town halls, just reaching out and connecting with constituents. Last week we talked with teachers and parents, and we're here tonight to connect with young women in our community. I'm really grateful for you all agreeing to be here tonight. I know it's a lot. You don't know what to expect, but we're really just here to have a casual, honest conversation, and we just want to hear from you. Like I said earlier, your challenges, your concerns, your hopes, your dreams for yourself, for the future, and also for your community and the world. So it's kind of a really open forum tonight.
Yes, absolutely. And we want to welcome everybody who is joining us on the live stream. And for those of you who are on the replay, it's great to have you as well. Feel free, anybody who's watching, to comment, ask questions, bring concerns to the table. That's what we're at, the virtual town hall table. And so feel free to jump in to the conversation and add your thoughts and suggestions, ideas, and that's what this is really about. So let's just jump right in. Kaylee, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Tell me, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Let's see. In 10 years, I see myself probably already graduated from college, I hope. Some sort of science degree. I want to move to a mid-rural area with access to more city type areas. So somewhere maybe like Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. And I just want a small house and a dog.
Goals, those are great. Trust me, great. So do you want to stay in West Virginia?
I think I could stay in West Virginia. I really like it here. I think it's really pretty, especially in Greenbrier County, but I also really love Harper's Ferry. I like the history there and the connection to Washington. Especially, like I said, I want to go into a science field, so it would be important to have job access there.
Absolutely. Sarah, I'm going to throw the same question out to you. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I have to say, I also hope that I've graduated from college, hopefully with a degree in psychology. And I don't really know where I want to live yet. Like, I've always liked big cities like New York, but I've also been looking into other countries. Like, I want to see the world. So
That's
hopefully
good.
that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Wonderful. And Lauren, what about you?
In 10 years, probably like everybody else, probably graduated from college. I'd like to have a degree in like journalism, or I think it'd be cool to do something in music. But I would like to come back to West Virginia, but I think I want to live somewhere bigger for a little while and then like come back and like maybe have a family here or something. But
Mm-hmm. And Bethany?
In 10 years, I feel like I would just like to be like successful in whatever I'm doing and happy with what I'm doing. I definitely want to be well traveled by then. I want to see the world, as Sarah said. And so, yeah.
Well, we're certainly not going to hold you to anything here, oh, well, 10 years ago you said no, nothing like that. I guess the question I want to know is, when you think about West Virginia, and we'll start with you, Bethany, tell me what you think the pros of West Virginia are, and specifically where you live in Greenbrier County. Tell me what the pros are.
It is gorgeous here. Like, it's literally amazing. Like, fall right now is beautiful. I think we're a small community, so everyone kind of knows who everyone is, and everyone around here is really sweet. If you think about it, like if you go out somewhere else to a bigger city, like people aren't going to act the same. And that's a pro for me.
What about you, Lauren?
pretty much exactly what Bethany said. It is never not pretty here, no matter what season it is. It is just so gorgeous here all the time. And I love that about West Virginia. And also, I kind of like Bethany said, whenever something happens, like everybody's really good at coming together in a community. And I just really like it here because everybody's good at coming together and everybody knows each other, like Bethany said. It's kind of nice.
That's great. What about you, Sarah?
I feel like, as Lauren and Bethany just said, the community is a really important thing. Because I used to live in a city in North Carolina, and it was such a big place. And then I moved here, and like everyone knows each other, and it's really nice.
That's great. And Kaylee?
I really love the cultural aspects of our area. I feel like Lewisburg, especially, and other parts of Greenbrier County really take the art seriously. You know, you go anywhere and you see beautiful paintings. Like in downtown, we have this fire hydrant art, which is just amazing. And we have so many festivals and music like everywhere, and so many opportunities as well to get to places like the river trail, go see the river, go see trees, go see nature. And it's just really gorgeous.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. Well, you're right. All of you are right. It's a beautiful area. Let's talk about the negatives. If there's negatives, maybe there isn't. Kaylee, is there a negative to West Virginia, to Greenbrier County, to?
Okay, so equal access. I know a lot of kids especially don't have equal opportunities to other kids, which is a big con. I think every kid should have the same opportunity for education and, like I was mentioning earlier, the arts. So that's definitely a big con. And you were talking about just over West Virginia, our reliance on fossil fuels, that's a big con. I think we need to get more into the renewable energy, because soon we're going to deplete our natural resources, and that's just going to be bad.
What about you, Sarah?
Personally, I think I almost feel unsafe sometimes. Just particularly for me, I'm very openly a member of the LGBTQ community, and especially with the type of stigmatism you get around here, sometimes I feel really unsafe, and it scares me a lot.
Yeah. Well, we're going to come back to that. Lauren, what about you?
I'd say some cons, kind of like Haley said. Well, kind of will be like land exploitation. I feel like so often West Virginia, it's really beautiful, but with things like the pipeline and like coal mining land just gets like exploited really easily. And another con would probably be the opioid crisis, which is all over America, but like specifically in West Virginia, I feel like it's really heavy.
Yeah. And what about you, Bethany?
I'm gonna say some cons are what everyone else said. Like, I definitely feel scared sometimes being like a person of color, and we do have beautiful land, but we do use it for the wrong reasons sometimes. And the opioids, that's a big crisis we have here. And yeah.
Wow, you guys are you girls, need to check myself there, are amazing. I do want to hit on some of these things because they're incredibly important. I also wanted to ask, and this isn't, there's no right or wrong answer to this. Do you guys know how many women are in the state legislature?
I do not.
Would you be shocked to know that West Virginia has the lowest number of female participation?
I would not be shocked to hear that.
Yeah, I would not be shocked.
That does not shock me.
Unfortunately.
And let me ask, does anybody know what state has a majority of women in the state legislature? So most of the representatives.
California.
I want to say California.
It's Nevada.
Oh.
More than 50% of that legislature is made up of women. I met some women from the Nevada state legislature, and we were all just like, what is that like? And they said it's pretty awesome.
I can imagine.
I can imagine. And I think, Delegate Lavender-Bowe, that's a really good segue into Sarah's commentary, which I really want to dig into if that's okay. Do you all know that West Virginia has the highest number of transgendered youth in the nation?
I did not know that.
I know that.
Hawaii is second. So you can imagine there's only a few women in the legislature. So it's a very small group of people, and they stick together pretty close, pretty tight group. So it is concerning to hear, Sarah, that you feel unsafe as a member of the LGBTQ community. What do you think we could do better in West Virginia to raise awareness and bring enlightenment?
Well, I think West Virginia, is not as bad about that as a lot of people think it is. Because looking on it from the outside, you think that West Virginia is super homophobic and super transphobic, and it is. But there's also, there's a Pride Alliance club at our school, and we've got quite a few members, and that's super awesome. And there's Pride in Charleston and all this stuff that you don't really think about. But I feel like just talking about it more would really help a lot of people, because it's not talked about. And I feel like a lot of the hate and fear stems from ignorance. And I don't know, I think just raising awareness could do a lot.
Absolutely. Well, and that diversity could lend itself quite well in the legislature too, which we do have members of the LGBTQ community in our legislature, and that's very helpful. But greater diversity does help raise awareness and bring those voices to the table.
I just to chime in for a second. I think that you're first of all of you girls are young women, I should say, are incredibly brave for being here and using your voice and being vulnerable and talking about what you're afraid of and what's difficult in your life right now. So thank you for doing that. And Sarah Allen, you're absolutely right. The way that we change those things is to talk about them. And, anything that anybody is fearful of, or that they, it's usually because they don't understand. And I think the more that we have discussions and the more that we learn to get to know people who are different from us, in whatever way, in whatever capacity, and to lead with kindness and empathy. And I think, I'm probably guessing correctly in that all of you model that in your lives daily. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And Kaylee, I want to go to your point about equality. You mentioned that there are some young people in your area that aren't receiving the same level of access. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with, okay, so the COVID crisis hit and it really amplified this effect because now there's a lot of children, especially in the more rural areas such as Frankfurt and Rennick, who don't have internet access, for example. And so their schoolwork ends up being a lot different from the schoolwork that other kids, say in Lewisburg or Ronsford, are receiving. If they are doing the remote option, then they might not receive the same videos or the same like face-to-face time as other kids with other access to internet services and things like that. And they're also not like getting the in-class time. For example, some people who, like, if their parents work and they can't bring them to and from school, they can't go in class to learn things from their teachers. So I think it's really important that we work to make all of that accessible for every student, especially in those rural areas. And with art education, I know a lot of the schools share art teachers, so a lot of them don't have like art accessible every day. Meanwhile, I went to Lewisburg Elementary and we had a full-time art teacher. So anytime I needed a creative outlet, I could just go to him. We had a full-time music teacher, full-time PE, full-time counselors. So my support system ended up being stronger than support systems of, say, Alderson or other schools, maybe White Sulphur, who don't have the full-time support that children in Lewisburg might have. So we need to make that support accessible to all students.
Very well said. Very well stated. Lauren, if you could ask for one thing of your legislators today, one thing to make something happen, what would it be?
That's a hard one. Oh, I would say probably easier access to women's health care.
Okay, very good. Do you tell me your concerns about that?
I just think, like, the United States as a whole has pretty, like, specifically, like, abortion access is pretty, gets pretty limited in the United States, and in West Virginia specifically, because it's generally a very, rural area. There's only, like, one Planned Parenthood in West Virginia, and I think there's, like, one operating abortion clinic in Charleston, which is relieving, but also it's really far away. And so, like, if you lived in, say, Monroe County, it would be harder for you to get healthcare access than somebody who lives in, like, Charleston.
Right, right. Bethany, I'm going to ask that same question of you. If you could talk to your legislators, and specifically as a person of color, what would you have to say?
I would definitely say, oh, that's a tough question. I don't know.
Well,
maybe to like help the like divide between like people of color, because there's definitely a lot of racism around here still, and people just look over it. They're just like, oh, we're used to it, blah 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 blah. Like it's the normal around here, but it shouldn't be. Like it should be a conversation that we talk about, because everyone is so openly racist here. It's kind of upsetting.
It sounds like it would be incredibly upsetting. I'm fortunate. One of my friends who is a person of color says I have the complexion for protection. That's what he calls it. And so I can't imagine that But Bethany, let me ask you this. Do you think it's getting better or do you think it's getting worse?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I feel like I've just like been more aware of it recently, especially with the whole Black Lives Matter movement.
Mhm.
People have been more vocal about like their beliefs and stuff like that. And like me, like myself, like coming of age and like finally understanding everything about it, like I think it's like probably been the same for a while, but I'm just now realizing how bad it is.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Um, Sarah, let me ask you this: do you think racism is a major issue in your area?
Well, yes. I feel like Lewisburg, particularly, of course, I wouldn't know as well as someone who's a person of color would, but I feel like Lewisburg might be better than some places. I can't say that for certain, but it's definitely an issue. It's definitely an issue.
Let's talk about education. Tell me about your experiences in school. Do you feel like you're getting quality education? And if not, why? Let's start with you, Kaylee.
Up until this year, I felt like my education was very high quality, except for a few outlier teachers, but that's not really to do with the county. But now my education is very cluttered. There's not organization to it, and it's really hard for me to focus. I'm a hybrid learner this year, so I'm in school 2 days, which helps because I have like actual in-person time with my teachers. So if I have a question or something, I can go straight to them and ask. And some of my teachers are doing really great, but I just feel like there's a huge workload and I don't have time to focus on other important things like volunteering with my community, taking a break from my mental health, seeing my friends. And whenever I do those things, I almost feel guilty because I'm not getting my work done. And I'm very behind actually. So it's really stressful this year. And I hope things even back out soon. And I know that there's a lot of stress on teachers also. They're concerned about student safety and well being, along with trying to get them educated. So I think it's just a messy situation for everyone.
Lauren, let me ask you, since we have kids out of school right now, do you have concern about any students that you know that might be at risk of, say, abuse or hunger or other things that we know are problematic in West Virginia?
I feel like a lot of number of kids, specifically from like areas that like aren't necessarily Lewisburg, because Lewisburg is a fairly different area from a lot of different places around us. I feel like I would say that they would definitely struggle with like, you know, getting like proper access to food and also like mental health resources. I know that Greenbrier County Schools, whenever we first got out of school for COVID, was like offering meals to students, which was really, really good. And I think a lot of people really appreciated that. But I would say that it's a pretty big issue of people dealing with abuse, lack of food, and mental, like trying to get mental health resources, or for kids who have to go to like speech therapy at school or like have aides at school who may, you know, struggle with like autism, stuff like that. Then I think that is really hard.
Let me interrupt for a second. Are you all doing the hybrid model where you go to school part-time? And so do you have opportunities? How's that going for you? Do you have opportunities to socialize, to interact with your friends? Or is it just pretty much go in and, because I know you're there for a shortened day and get the work done and get out. How does that work? And is it fulfilling some of the needs that you have socially?
Can I take this one real quick?
Sure.
I feel like I get to socialize with my friends a little bit at school, but that's mostly just because we have the same lunch period and the same classes and our last names align. So I guess I just got fortunate. I also have some really good teachers who encourage in-class discussion. For example, Jeffrey Owens. He every day we walk into class and he's like, "So what do you guys want to do?" Which I find really encouraging. And I don't know. I feel like some of my needs are getting fulfilled, but I'm not a high needs person. So I also feel that some others who, like Lauren was saying, maybe need an aid or something. I think Lauren was saying that they might not get the same opportunity to spend that time with the aide or with the tutor or with the counselor. So there's that.
Well, and so let me ask this question. Have you noticed any teachers who are struggling?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Lauren, you go ahead.
No, you can go on ahead. I'm doing remote this year, but so you can go
Oh,
for it.
okay. My math teacher right now is very behind. She was like very stressed out the other day because they are expecting their lesson plans for like the third 9 weeks, like 2 weeks ago, and she was falling behind on her grading. One of my teachers, English, we are doing vocab quizzes, and she wanted to do full sentences where we'd have to write out our answers in complete sentences, but she had to change it to multiple choice. And when I asked her why, she said it was because it was easier to grade. And she was very apologetic for it because she felt like she wasn't giving us the best education that she thought she could, just to try to keep up with guidelines and time restrictions. So a lot of my teachers are struggling with this.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I think specifically my English teacher, I'm not sure if I have the same English teacher as Kaylee or not, but I'm taking AP language, and she's not the normal teacher for that. The normal teacher decided he couldn't go, and so she just got shoved into it using his curriculum that she doesn't know. And now she has all these classes, and I feel so bad for her because that's just not a good situation.
Yeah, it's let me ask this. How are your parents faring? Bethany, how are your parents doing?
Well, my mom, she works at the hospital. She's not like a doctor or anything, but she is there. And so she's seen like COVID kind of up close and seen like how the doctors have reacted to it and stuff like that. So she was a little worried for me to go back to school at first, but she got used to it. I was like, I have to go. It's my senior year. But she also has a shop, and that got closed down for COVID, but it's back up and running. So she's doing good now.
Good.
So, Bethany, let me ask you about that for a second, because you just talked about being a senior, and what a weird school year. And what do you think about that? What are your hopes? And I mean, are you missing like football games? Just like how's that feel? Knowing that this is your final year.
It feels kind of sad because I only go for 2 hours a day. I was supposed to leave after fourth period to take college classes, and since they shortened the schedule, I leave at 10:20. And I just feel like once I get out of school, I'm like, what do I do? Like, I have nothing to do. There's definitely more work than I thought there would be because teachers are assigning stuff for a week instead of a day. And so they're over assigning a little bit. But it's hard to juggle it with college classes as well. But I'm getting by. I'm a little behind, like Kaylee said. But it's really sad because I am missing the games. Like, I played volleyball for a couple years, and I was really excited to go to the girls' senior night this year, but couldn't do that. So it's sad.
I guess one bright side that it just dawned on me as you were talking is it's like you're kind of dipping your toe in the independent study that college gives you, because you guys are being handed, here's all this work, get it done and, manage your time. And so,
Yeah, definitely.
there's
it's so like college.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That was going to be my next comment was, what are your takeaways from this experience going to be, do you think? I mean, I know that I could have probably used better examples to help me learn time management and those types of things. But what are you learning from it at this point?
Yeah, definitely time management. Like if you don't do it on time, like that's on you. Like your teachers aren't there to help you anymore. It teaches you to be independent, like you said, and it's gonna help me in the long run. It's a little hard to get used to, but it's definitely gonna help in the long run. It's just different and we're not used to it yet.
Lauren, what about you?
I think that this time has taught me not to take past experiences for granted. Like I look back on like when I was in school this time last year, and I'm like, what I would do to like go back to that time, you know. Also like football games and soccer games really different now, but it's just appreciating like what you have and learning not to take things for granted. Also time management. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. This is for everyone. Whoever wants to jump in first. Do you think that West Virginia and the nation? Do you think we're taking COVID seriously enough, or too seriously? Yeah, Lauren, go right ahead.
I feel like our country's approach to COVID has been pretty reckless. Like just as a whole country, I feel like we could have done so much better. There's so many things that were very preventable, and nobody took action. I feel like people who believe that COVID isn't real, or like I'm not gonna wear a mask. I just think that is so absurd, and I think maybe that has to do with some of the influence of our political leaders.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Bethany, you can go.
Are you sure?
I think definitely, like Lauren said, as a country, we did not handle this well. But I think as a state, West Virginia actually has done pretty well. I think, particularly, I mainly know how Greenbrier County has been doing, and I think we've been doing pretty decently. Obviously, not perfect. There's probably there's definitely stuff that could have been handled better, but I think West Virginia has done pretty okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a mix. I definitely think that we handled it really well compared to other states, but there's still like a few like wanderers without like masks on and stuff like that. And recently I went to Delaware and they required masks outside. And so that was a different experience. And it was actually kind of amazing to see people actually following that. And yeah.
Along with the masks, I just thought it was kind of funny how we had a mask mandate indoors, and yet it was blatantly disregarded in multiple locations. My family went into Walmart the other day, and people were handing out masks at the door to people who didn't have them, and they would just go in and throw them away. Or I would see an employee with it, like, not covering their nose. And it's just frustrating how, like, loose and just not, I don't know, how loose people are taking this. They don't take it seriously, like people's lives depend on this, and they really do. So it's like immaturity, I guess.
Yeah.
Whenever you just blatantly refuse to be safe for other people, it just shows me the lack of respect you have for like your fellow humans. And it's very frustrating.
Have any of you been really worried about loved ones? For instance, my parents are very susceptible. So I actually had COVID many months ago, and I didn't get to I didn't get to see my parents for months. And so are any of you being really careful? Do you have loved ones who are susceptible or at risk?
Yeah.
Would that be grandparents or?
My mom has an autoimmune disease, and so it's just pretty like worrying. That's part of the reason I didn't go to school this year, and also like it's hard to see mom, like she has an autoimmune disease, but also she has to go to work every day. like there's like, she just has to. So even, I mean, it's just kind of like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and let's hope that at some point in time that we can all learn from this and grow from this. Not only individually but collectively as a nation. And if any of you travel abroad and you happen to end up in Japan or another, in a nation where during flu season they actually wear masks pretty much during flu season all the time, you'll be prepared. You'll be ready to go and won't skip a beat there. But let's talk in terms. Some of you have brought up healthcare. I'd like to get your thoughts on mental health care and the access. And how are we helping children? Are we doing a good job helping children? Can we do a better job helping kids? What's your thoughts on that realm? Kaylee, let's just have you start and then I'll go around the circle here.
So at the beginning of quarantine, when school shut down, I was going through a really tough time because of that. I have always been a very social person. I've always been involved in like a lot of different groups, and not having those in my life was really hard on me. But one thing that helped was I talked to my pediatrician, and she prescribed me Celexa, just a very like the smallest dose, and it just made me less angry. My experience with mental health wasn't really sad or anything like that. I was just angry all the time at everybody for no reason. And I think my healthcare provider at Robert C. Byrd really helped me with that. And so I guess Robert C. Byrd is doing a really good job. I just hope that other kids have access to similar healthcare professionals and feel confident enough with themselves to be able to express how they're feeling openly with healthcare professionals. We really need to encourage trust between them because that's the only way things are going to get fixed or get better. And that can happen through school. You could talk to your school nurse, you could talk to your school counselor, and I'd really hope that they would help you in a similar way that I was helped.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, for me.
Oh, sorry.
Well, let's go with Sarah and
you
then
let
we'll
me.
go to Bethany.
Yeah.
I feel like Kaylee said that she's and I know her, Kaylee's a very social person. I'm not a very social person, but it hit me too. Maybe not as fast, but I think for me personally, without the structure, like I rely on the structure that school provides to like keep me going. And when that was just suddenly cut off, I just slooped. I just dropped into a slump. I couldn't get myself to do anything, staying in bed all day. And it was just hard to now it's been really hard to get myself out of that. Now I need to be up and doing things and I have structure again. I feel like it's just kind of thrown me all over the place.
It's like being in a car going, tumbling down a hill. Bethany, you wanted to expand on that?
I agree with Kaylee. I think Robert C. Byrd does a great job with mental health issues because I go there too, and my doctor is amazing. I feel like school, on the other hand, doesn't handle it as well as they should. I'm not like asking for like mental health days or anything, but there's definitely some days where like I just feel so tired and like I just like physically can't go to school. Like I just don't like it just hurts to think about it. Like I just feel like school could like work with us better with that, like help us catch up or do something because they really don't. Like if you're absent, that's on you. You have to make up the work and you have to do this and that. And I feel like for some people, they might need the extra help after missing a couple of days of school for their own mental health and not just because they wanted to skip school. I don't think they understand that there's actually some reason behind it.
Right. Absolutely. What about you, Lauren?
Whenever we first got out of school, I definitely did struggle with mental health a little bit. Personally, I didn't like go visit a doctor or anything about it, but I just kind of took it out with like creativity. I just started like drawing more, like color or like painting more, I guess. But I do agree with what Bethany said that sometimes like whenever school bogs you down and you feel like there's been times when I'm like, I really just need to take a break right now, but it's like, take a break now, you don't get any breaks later. Like, you have to make up the work, and it gets really stressful really easily, especially when you have like classes that give you a heavier workload than others, and then like you're doing work in other classes. Like, I would do my English work sometimes in my theater class or stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, let's hope this makes you feel a little better. We got celebrity Mark Bowe giving you a shout out here, saying how proud he is of you, and that he's watching future leaders, and he is so right. So thank you, Mark Bowe, for watching and chiming in. So let's talk economic development. Let's talk jobs. Let's talk things to do, industry. Kaylee, I think you mentioned science, right? That you're wanting a science degree. If you could bring one industry to the state of West Virginia, what would it be?
Right now, I'm currently very interested in epigenetics, which is basically you have your genetic code, but then there is a layer around it, and certain things in your life can turn some of your genes on or off depending on how they interfere with that lining. That's the study of epigenetics, and it's really interesting to me. So, for example, if you smoke, it might turn off a gene that maybe had to do with, I don't know, hair loss, for example, and that could change throughout your whole line of offspring after that. So I think that could be a really cool thing to introduce in West Virginia. There's also a lot of studies with it having to do with agriculture, and I know that agriculture is a big part of the West Virginia economy. So I think if we introduce that level to our agricultural programs, that could just take it to the next level, really bump it up.
That was a big word. Just
Let me
that was
ask
a really big word.
I want to ask you a question about that. So I have studied, and I have a lot of concern for the impact of trauma on our students. And so what you're talking about with epigenetics and the genetic, your genes changing for future generations. So this would be related to that, because I know they talk about like Vietnam veterans, for example, who have PTSD, and they're finding that their children suffer from PTSD. It's so that basically that their genetics are changed and that they pass that on down. So is that part of what you're referencing?
Certainly sounds like it could definitely be part of it, either turning on something, like either turning on a gene that exposes them to a higher possibility of PTSD, or turning off a gene that prevents higher exposure to PTSD. It really has to do with a lot of different things, and it's a very new field of study, like maybe in the past 20 years. So there's still a lot of research going on, but I would say that definitely has to do with epigenetics. That would make a lot of sense.
Kaylee, you intimidated me just right there. I'm letting you know that. But
you get used to it hanging around with her.
I love that though.
I want to say one more thing too. I have a friend. She lives in Maryland. She works in DC. She actually works at the National Institutes for Health. She works where Dr. Fauci works. She's a scientist, and I love to refer to her as my friend, the scientist. And I'm so excited that you're so not only interested in science, but you're already so knowledgeable. And I'm really excited to see where all of you young ladies are in a few years down the road. I'm sitting here thinking, when I was their age, I was probably like watching way too much MTV and, I don't know if you guys really know what that was, but it was music videos all day long. It was, we used to just have the radio, and then we got pictures with the radio. but seriously, like, you guys are leaps and bounds ahead of where I was at your age. And you are the women who are going to change the world. And don't forget that. And it may be the world on a huge scale, or it may be the world right around you. But I don't mean to interrupt it. I'm just so inspired. There's been so many times already in the last 30 minutes that I've wanted to jump up and cheer, or you've brought me to tears, because you're all so deep feeling and deep thinking, and you're all so brave to share your voices. And again, thank you.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point of tonight, is being able to listen and ask questions. And that's one reason why, when we're talking about bringing industries to the state, Kaylee, I will say, I think that is a critical, knowing about the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. And if you look at generational, you will see so many of the same similarities. And it's been pretty interesting to watch that develop as ACEs continues to become more, people become more aware of it. But when we're talking about industries that come to the state, Sarah, do you have anything in particular you would like to see come to West Virginia, or maybe what opportunities for women would you like to see come to West Virginia?
Well, now I'm really interested in epigenetics. I didn't know that was a thing, but
Right?
that's really
Right?
so fascinating. I'm gonna be doing research on that later.
That's right.
But other than that, I don't know. As far as opportunities for women go, I don't know. I'd like to see more stuff with STEM, particularly opportunities for women in that. I think opportunities for women in STEM is the big thing that needs to be improved, I think, throughout the country, but particularly in West Virginia, it'd be really nice to see some more stuff to do with that.
Right. Well, and if you're interested in STEM, I just can't not say Dr. Beth Wolf's name here. She's at University of Charleston, and she is your STEM gal, and she is amazing. So I'm just throwing that out there. She didn't pay me or anything. Do you think women and girls in West Virginia are treated fairly and equally as much as, say, other places?
I mean,
or maybe it's hard to know, so if you don't, if you haven't been other places yet, maybe that's hard to judge.
I mean, I'm trying to think about this.
How do I say this?
I mean, there is a difference in how we get treated. I mean, sexism is a major issue everywhere. I think, personally, I feel in Lewisburg, it's a lot better than it could be. I know my mom is the first female pastor at my church, so she's a big leader for that. But I know there are other areas where it's a much bigger issue than I've ever had to deal with. I've been pretty lucky. I've never really encountered any huge problems with sexism in my life, and I'm very fortunate for that.
Yeah. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Okay, so if we're talking about education is kind of what it seemed. I have attended 2 governor's schools, those are government funded programs. And they are based off of applications that each individual sends in. I have realized that both times I've been sent, the majority of people from our county sent with me to these programs have been women. So I think that in that aspect, the government has done a good job of incorporating female ideas and giving them opportunities that males might have as well. I know that on a more personal level with just people who aren't, government officials at school, they have more problems with sexism. I know girls can walk down the street and get catcalled, which is disgusting, and other things like that. Slurs happen all the time. Obviously, we're in high school, so this is a main breeding ground for hate. And I think that does have to do with gender and identity as well.
Anybody else want to chime in there? That was a deep topic, so we can, and here's the great thing about this conversation is it doesn't have to end today. We have an hour tonight, and it's slowly creeping up to 8 o'clock. So, and I do have to show this real quick. And I think Mark hit on this so well. Epigenetics, oh my God, how do we keep her here? This is what scares me the most. The thought of losing these ladies to other states. Please see the world as you grow. But how do we keep you all here and being the change that we need in West Virginia? Spot on. And it, I left West Virginia for a very long time, and I came back 10 years ago. And I will be honest, I said, oh my gosh, what have I done? I was really like, it was different. It was not the same West Virginia that I had left. It was much worse. And so at first I was like, oh, do I go back to Missouri? What do I do? But then I kind of made some resolutions for myself. I'm going to throw this question. Who wants to run for office in the future?
Well, let me tell you, it's not as scary as you think it would be.
Yeah. Well, if you were going to run for office, why and why not?
Why I would to make a difference, to be maybe the first African American girl to do something. I don't know. That would be a big accomplishment. Why not? Because I would be the first African American girl to do something that would come with a lot of hate and stigmatism. So, and it would be hard work, and no one likes to think about doing hard work. So, yeah.
Well, let's think about Katherine Johnson for a moment. We've talked about science and STEM. Imagine Katherine Johnson at NASA is doing the work, but segregated from everyone else. Not just because of her skin color, but her gender as well. I mean, back then it was, that was one of those things. But she changed the world. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps thinking she changed the world. So that is so interesting. It is hard work for that first person to come forward. So Bethany, maybe you are going to be the first person of color governor in West Virginia. I don't know. I have big hopes for all of you. But Sarah, would you ever want to run for office?
I think, yeah, I would be interested in that. I'm not a very decisive person. I can't make up my mind about anything for more than a few months. But I've always been a very politically driven person. And I hate sitting by watching other people make the decisions and not being able to have a voice. So I think running for office is definitely something that I would be pretty interested in.
Lauren, what about you?
Yeah, politics is something that really interests me. I think it'd be really cool to run for office, but it's one of those things that seems very daunting, I guess. There's a lot that comes with that. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of support. I don't know. But
I'm making notes. I'm writing people's names down here. Just keep talking. No, you're right. I mean, there's definitely pros and cons, but it's I think as Delegate Lavender-Bowe said, it's not as bad as you think, and it's what about you, Kaylee? I mean, I know you're going to be an epigenetics. But would you ever want to run for office?
Within a company. I'm
our
a
company?
Yeah, I'm a big member of our student government, and I have been since middle school. I think I do good on like boards of staff rather than boards of states or countries. And I'd also be afraid that I would hear about a topic and not be as well informed as I should be
Yeah.
and make a decision that would hurt a bunch of people. That's like a big fear of mine, which would just be amplified if I were to be on like the Senate or in the House of Representatives. So that would be really stressful. But I think I could do something smaller, maybe like within a community based thing or with my epigeneticist company or wherever I end up.
Well,
Well, you make a good point there talking about, being afraid that you'd have to make a decision on a topic that you don't know a lot about. And that's true. There's a lot of legislation that comes before you, and you've got to make decisions sometimes very quickly. But what's key is we need more people that feel the way that you feel in those positions, who take it seriously and who want to do the research, who want to be aware of what exactly it is that they're voting for. And I'll be the first to admit there was some legislation came up in a committee meeting that I was on, and I was thinking this doesn't sound right. We asked several questions because there were expert witnesses there to speak to us, and we're like, oh yeah, it's fine. So I'm still kind of unsure about it, but then when it got down to vote, there's 100 of us in a room, and you get to watch everybody's name lights up, how they vote, yes or no. And it seemed like everybody was voting for it. And I was like, well, I must just be reading something into this that's not there. And so I voted for it. And a constituent reached out to me and sent me an email and was like, what did you just vote for? And they were in that field. And so they had an understanding of it that I didn't. And I only thought, I suspected that it was not right. And so then when they explained to me, I was like, you're absolutely right. I didn't know enough about this. And so there were two lessons I learned from that. And one is I was fortunate that we had to vote on it again. So I got to change my vote. So sometimes, you make a mistake, you can fix it. But more importantly, someone in my community was paying attention and reached out to me and said, hey, let me tell you about this, because I'm elected to represent my community, and I'm in no way, shape, or form an expert on anything, let alone all the things that come before me. But it is my job to represent the people in my community. And so collectively, if you are at the very least involved enough to be contacting your representatives and letting them know before something comes up, or letting them know about a concern or even an idea, that's what's key. And I think you ladies have demonstrated that tonight in being here and speaking up.
Well, and I'll say this also, though, Delegate Lavender-Bowe, your gut was speaking to you.
Yeah.
Right? Your gut was
Listen to your gut.
Listen to your gut, ladies. And Kaylee and Lauren and Sarah and Bethany, you've all kind of hit upon one thing for sure, is that you all have a role to play. And as Kaylee said, maybe it's not in the House of Representatives. Maybe it's on your school board. But there's a place for you all. And to have a seat at the table is what is going to change all of the things that we talked about tonight, which we only touched on, briefly, each one. But it's going to, it's going to, it's going to allow greater diversity among voices at the table. It's going to allow us to start that change that needs to happen. Sarah, you're talking about LGBTQ issues. We've talked about a plethora of different things here tonight. But change starts, girl. Great ideas reflect leadership, epigenetics, and all of the other things that you've talked about and what you want to do. This is how we change West Virginia. This is how we change it to be better. We love West Virginia. and we can say, we can talk about the bad things in West Virginia, but nobody else can. Nobody else can come into our state and say it's bad. We can, but it's like your siblings. So I echo what Delegate Lavender-Bowe said. I think you all are amazing, brave women who are. I'm almost about to cry because I see so much opportunity with each of you, and I'm incredibly proud of all of you.
Thank you.
And Sarah and I talk a lot about how much we could change our community, our state, and the world if we uplift women. And if you can change the social and financial trajectory of women, if we can provide equal pay for equal work. At your age, I never dreamed that we still wouldn't have that. That's still, you guys are probably aware of that it's perfectly legal to pay Kaylee as an epigeneticist less than you pay Bob, who's in the office next door doing exactly the same thing. And that's perfectly legal in West Virginia right now. And
Bethany may get paid even less.
Yes, exactly. And all of these things that you've all talked about, access to mental health, that access to internet, which I don't even think we've really talked about much tonight, but all of these things that we all deal with on a daily basis, plus these really difficult topics. You guys have brought up access to women's health care. You've brought up racial justice. You've brought up LGBTQ issues. You've talked about sexism, and you all are already aware of the issues and challenges every day in your life, and that's the first step. And talking about them and having these ideas, and just keep this with you. And like Sarah said earlier, always listen to your gut. Your gut knows. That funny feeling that you get. It took me a long time to figure out, I should listen to that. Just like I was 40 years old before somebody told me, you know what? You're a good leader. And what I'd always been told from the time that I was really small is, you're bossy. So,
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that you young ladies already recognize that nobody's going to tell you not to speak up. Nobody's going to tell you not to speak out. And you're so brave, and I cannot say enough about that. And I'm so excited. Sometimes it's easy to feel hopeless and to be concerned about the future, because we have a lot of problems, not only in the state, in the country, and in the world. We talked a little bit about climate change and the environment, but there are so many things that give me trepidation about the future. But I'm so inspired listening to all of you that, if you guys are the next generation, you guys are going to fix these things that we haven't been able to fix yet. And again, just keep speaking up.
Perfect. And as our friend Delegate Walker says, see something, say something, speak up. And it sounds like you guys really don't need our advice in that regard. Again, I'm in awe of you all. Lauren, Sarah, Bethany, Kaylee, amazing. You're amazing. Keep up the great work. If you need that mental health day, tell them Sarah said it was okay. Or actually, I'm a nobody. Say Delegate Lavender-Bowe said it was okay. I'm just kidding there. Just kidding. But no, seriously. And if I can ever be of assistance, let me know. I know Delegate Lavender-Bowe, she is your state delegate. She is here to serve not just adults over 18, but you too. So keep up this amazing path that you're on, because I'm just in awe. I'm not easily intimidated, but all of you have intimidated me quite well tonight. So thank you very much. I'm going to go now cry in the bathroom. So anyway, ladies, thank you. We went over our time, but I mean, I could have 10 more of these conversations. And so maybe that's an idea we can talk about in the future. But until then, again, stay in touch with Delegate Lavender-Bowe, and if you have ideas on legislation or, you know, issues locally in the community, speak up. Let your voice be heard, and don't let anybody drown that out, because we want to hear from you. Okay?
Yeah, we sure do. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
ladies, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.